and welcome to Gruen Nation, the series that's all marketing, zero policy. Separating the ScoMos from the elbows, you can call me Ando, but not Ando. Wrong show. One thing that is certain, whoever wins the election, we're going to get a bunch of punts.
Bet on all 151 seats, seat multis, or just back the election winner.
We're in the Ladbrokes election lab. Order! Order!
That's right. If they lose their seat, you lose your house. And according to Bluebet, punting on democracy isn't just okay, it's Australian.
Luckily, having a crack is in our DNA.
Have a crack. Either way, you get an arsehole. But there's one brand I bet will have a tough time this election.
Get great odds and more markets this federal election.
Hang on, Palmer bet? Are you related to Clive Palmer?
With 3 generations of Aussie bookies in our blood and not a failed political career in sight, we're definitely not that Palmer.
Hang on, if you're not that Palmer, why is Clive Palmer in your ads?
Righto. It seems people still don't understand that I'm not involved with Palmerbet. You know, the ones given great odds to bet on the Australian federal election?
Wow, you know your brand's toxic when even a betting company goes, whoa, we're not as bad as him. Betting brands get a lot of free coverage during elections because they're such good predictors. Like last election, when 2 days before the vote, Sportsbet ran this ad announcing they'd paid out on a Bill Shorten win. The mistake cost them $5.2 million. Seems the idea that they're better predictors is bullshit. Actually, bullshit itself performs better. Take it from these cows that predicted the South Australian election result by crapping on pictures of candidates. And they actually got it right. Now I can't wait until election night when Anthony Gruen has promised me he'll announce the results the very same way. He said it. Please welcome our panel, Todd Sampson, former press secretary to Tony Abbott and founder of The Squiz, Claire Kimball, former advisor to Kevin Rudd and founder of 89 Degrees East, Annie O'Rourke, state politics editor at The Age, Annika Smethurst, and filling in for Russell Howcroft, who's recovering from COVID, former Liberal strategist Toby Ralph. Welcome. The election campaign was heralded online with an ad released the night before it all kicked off, featuring Scott Morrison being interviewed by no one, a lingering shot of a wedding ring. Sorry, ladies, he's taken it. His favourite catchphrases.
How good's that? That's why I love Australia.
And fake candid footage of the PM working late at night. So that's when he works. Oh, stop it. He's on Hawaiian time. Showing your leader working at night is a technique made famous by this guy. Don't be offended, on the ABC, he's a hero. Annie, is this the right way to market Scotty?
Well, look, I actually think the ad really hit the mark. The Liberal campaign team knew that, you know, for Morrison to win, he needed to make the longest journey. And so the ad is designed to tell his story and, you know, that things have been tough for our hero. It's a hero story. It's so tough, actually, they had to drop the octaves of his voice to show just how tough it's been. But he's been there, right there with us. He's had to work late, he's had to work hard, he's had to do it on his own because no one knows who's on his team. And, but it's okay because he's married.
Yeah.
He's our guy. So, you know, I think the campaign team, Liberal campaign team would have gone, yep, we've got it, we've nailed it. They got it out, bang, got media coverage, and they were on. So they would have been really happy with that.
It's a boring fear ad, isn't it? I mean, at its core, they know that we are attracted to negative messages more than we are to positive ones. They're looking for the kind of emotional hot button, and in this case, that emotional hot button is fear. So his whole thing, the darkness, the fear of the darkness, he's alone and it's all dark around him and the somber music, and he's basically saying to us, if, you know, in a time of uncertainty, which we're in, if you don't vote for us, there's going to be serious trouble.
But what else did they have?
A boring, typical fear ad and no other choices. So, what do you want to lock in, Toby?
So I think it's what you'd characterise as a positive ad. And positive ads don't work. Todd's exactly right. Negative ads change things, positive ads don't. So why do you run them? You run them for a few reasons. First reason is because you want to look nice initially, because then you're going to spend the rest of the election trying to kick your opponent to death. Second thing, you run it if you're going to sugarcoat a bribe. Third thing, you run it if you're going to keep your party faithful on side, and you want them giving out flyers and doing Lamington drives and giving you money and putting up lawns, and they won't do it if you're an arsehole. And so that's why you really want to do it. You also run it if it's a negative couched as a positive, and you try and do a nice thing. It lingers on his wedding ring. Why do they do that? They're saying, I'm faithful to my wife. The other guy split up with his. That's what they're trying to do with all of that.
Labor also ran a big ad before campaigning officially began.
My story begins here in a council house in Camperdown. Just me and Mum. She wasn't well, and it wasn't easy. So a long, long time ago, I did pick a side. I chose to side with working people who wanted a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. I did pick a side. Yours.
And when there was only one set of footprints in the sand, that's when Albo carried you. Not the worst Labor introduction I've seen. That was this guy.
Hi, I'm Bill Shorten. That's me in the middle.
Hi, Bill. I'm Will. This is me in the middle. What did you make of Albo's opening salvo?
It was the right thing to do, and we know that because there seems to be a lot of questions still about who Anthony Albanese is. And he has a really rich and interesting backstory, and he touched on some of those points when he gave that sort of delivery about the public housing and a single mum and all of those sorts of things. The interesting thing about Albanese's campaign so far is when you look at the Google Trends data, people are actually looking for who he is. So his biggest day on the internet of this campaign wasn't the gaffe. It wasn't about 4% unemployment rates or 5.4 or whatever it was. It was actually day one when the campaign was announced. People went to the internet to ask basic information about who are you and what's your age. So clearly there's a hunger from the voters about who he is. So give the people what they want.
I agree with what you're saying, but there's a small part of me that if at the start of the campaign you're Googling who is Anthony Albanese, I'm not sure you should be allowed to vote.
At least you're doing it at the start of the campaign, not after you voted.
And it's something that worked really well for Morrison at the 2019 election. You talked to Labor strategists then, and they said they had two problems. First, they had to teach people who Scott Morrison was, and then say, this is why he's bad and you shouldn't like him. And if you're trying to do both of those things, it's a pretty difficult task. So people not knowing who Anthony Albanese actually is really positive for Labor and really difficult, as you say, for the Libs.
You got to remember that governments lose, oppositions don't win. All he needs to be is sufficiently good enough while the other bloke gets kicked out. And that's what he's trying to reach, what we call minimum expectation. That's...
He's got it.
I'm running for Prime Minister and I'm running for minimum expectation. ME. The campaign so far has been as negative as my daily rat tests. The Liberals are on the attack.
Mr Albanese wanted JobKeeper extended, then called it a waste. Wanted payments for vaccines, then didn't. Opposed a new gas plant last year, but now supports it. When Australia needs certainty, it won't be easy under Albanese.
That slogan reminds me of something.
It's the bill Australia can't afford.
Oh, yeah. Who was that guy?
Hi, I'm Bill Shorten. That's me in the middle.
Hi, Bill. Labor's attacks have a bit more bite.
Going to Hawaii when half of Australia was burning was a mistake.
I don't hold a hose, mate.
Not making sure we had enough vaccines and rapid tests was a mistake.
It's not a race, it's not a competition, because that's not my job. That's not my job. It's not my job to do that.
Oh, it's not your job? My bad. Sorry. I take everything back. Toby, will this attack hit and hurt?
Yep. First thing is that you got to remember the election's decided by a handful of people, swinging voters in a handful of marginal seats. Those swinging voters really aren't engaged with politics, most of them. To them, Politicians are blokes in shiny suits who get too much super. And attack ads are effective because they encourage you to despise the other guy more than they despise yours. And so who's doing the best job there? That's a pretty good job. The second thing you have to remember is that being a Prime Minister is a kamikaze job. You know, you're in your honeymoon period and you're excited about your job and it's interesting and exciting when 30% of the country think you're a prick. Then it gets worse. You stuff up a couple of things, you make an odd blunder over the years and they're thrown back at you. Media are scrutinising you every day like you. And then the opposition are getting stuck into you. They have people paid full-time to ruin your life, and they're pretty good at it. And so that's what happens. Is this a good attack ad? Yes, it is. When you meet an ex-Prime Minister, you'll find somebody who's resentful, who's embittered, who's confused about where they are. And so will this do the job? Absolutely, it's terrific.
I think one is better than the other.
Why?
I think the attack ad of Albanese has a very strong visual metaphor, the weather vane. And we know that if someone hears a message, 3 days later, they only remember 10% of it. You add an image, they'll remember 70% of it. So that weather vane is quite clever because it does two things. First, by replacing the rooster with Albanese and having it blowing, you're basically saying, look, this guy can't make a decision, he blows with the wind. And the second thing is you're saying he's a cock.
Well, let's hope you're not saying he's blowing a cock, because I can't say that at this time slot.
But my issue with the second ad, the mistakes ad, is, for choice of a better phrase, I think the messaging of a mistake is wrong. I think that they have the opportunity to attack his character. And by attacking a mistake, by saying it's a mistake, we forgive mistakes. But you could argue that there is a big difference between a mistake and a slip. So when Albanese doesn't know the jobless, rate, that's a mistake. He should know that, that's a mistake. But when Morrison says, I don't hold a hose, that's an insight into how he thinks. And what they should be attacking is his character. And going after that, digging in about, not trustworthy, digging in about, really going for it. And my fear with Labor, it's not really my fear because I don't care, but with Labor is that they're trying to be too nice and Liberals are going to ruthlessly attack. And I think that mistake ad is a mistake by focusing on that aspect of it, not the character of the Prime Minister.
The election has been a tale of two campaign styles. Scott Morrison, who loves to say what isn't his job, is trying every other job. He's made macaroons, stirred the pot, met a robot, spilled milk, patted an alpaca, signed a garden gnome and visited a factory where they make big round things.
So this turns at about 16 RPM and it passes all the way.
That's what they do here. That's what these big round things do. And they'll make more big round things for different purposes. And they'll know how to do it.
Hang on, one more time. What do they do there?
That's what they do here. That's what these big round things do. And they'll make more big round things for different purposes. And they'll know how to do it.
While Anthony Albanese usually avoids props, the only thing he's picked up is dog shit while remaining very on message.
This is Mr. Albanese, mate.
Yeah, I'm running for Prime Minister.
Yeah, but you're not going to get his vote. You're barking up the wrong tree, Albo. Plus, to prove he won't be a PM that turns everything into a photo shoot, Albo's appeared in a series of photo shoots. If he loses the election, Taracash just found their next model. Annika, which is a better image? Daggy Dad, Glossy Bossy?
Look, I would say Morrison's is higher risk, higher reward. I know that previous Prime Ministers, Malcolm Turnbull notably, tried to catch footy in his backyard if he was going down to Punt Road or something like this, and his staff wanted him to, but he avoided it because nobody wants a John Howard moment where the cricket ball. Scott Morrison doesn't seem to have that fear, but he seems to pull it off more than he actually misses, and if he does miss or drop something or say something silly like that, he doesn't seem to care and it doesn't seem to affect him. The risk is that you do try some of these things and jump in and then you give the news, the TV news exactly the thing they want, which is you slipping up or doing something silly. And we talk about the way people get their election news. Most people don't talk about it all day like we do, but they still do watch the TV news. That's where most Australians get their news from. So these little images are actually really important. And I've been on the Morrison bus and he is energetic. I was on the last election campaign with him. He would do event after event after event. And last election particularly, I spoke to some Labor strategists afterwards and said, you know, the first few weeks they were out there in hospitals with sick people. They had a great cancer policy, but the images were terribly sad and didn't often make the news first, whereas Morrison's out there headbutting balls and these sort of things, and it actually does work. I think the daggy dad thing, though, is interesting because although it's nauseating to a lot of people, including a lot of his colleagues, it is based on some truth. He hams it up completely, but he is more of a white bread guy. He's a beer drinker, not a wine drinker. He does love the rugby, admittedly a different code to what he pretends to. But it's true.
I love that you said that he's white bread. He's Baker's Delight. He is nothing but white bread.
He claims to be, you know, not into that sourdough stuff. Look, and I think a lot of that is true, but he does ham it up. But it works because it's true. I think the risk with Albo is a lot of his appeal is that he's that guy that with a hard start, and he's a knockabout bloke. And most people in Canberra who like him and have known him for decades like him for that. And I think the risk that you become glossy Albo, and then we hit that roadblock like we did with Gillard when she says, well, now this is the real Julia, because they become so manufactured and so polished, they forget who the hell they are.
Yeah, I think it's the race to own the nightly news, because the majority of people, you know, are not watching it during the day or the morning. They watch at night. The way to win the nightly news is to do something, to be interactive, to have you be involved with something, and often to have a gaffe.
Can a gaffe win the news cycle in a positive way? I mean, you work with Tony Abbott, you'd know.
A gaffe?
But I mean, like, you know, to use an example, like an onion-eating moment, like, you know, something that isn't like, you know, Albo forgetting an important statistic, but is something a bit more like, you know, is it actually more value still to own the news that night, even if it's for a silly thing?
To be human is really important, and you're spot on, I think, Annika, when it comes to those moments. Authenticity is everything. And I remember with the Abbott campaign, when Rudd was stumbling off being the most popular Prime Minister that we'd ever seen, and Julia Gillard coming through and our real Julia moments, it was one of those things when it came to picking slogans, putting real in that slogan actually meant something and it resonated. That came with Tony quite naturally. I don't know what gaffes you're talking about, Will. One or two.
This is all life.
One or two, maybe along the road. But those human moments are gold.
In modern campaigning, candidates don't just interact with the public can interact with them.
Congratulations on being the worst Prime Minister we've ever had.
You're a disgrace! You are a disgrace!
Had a good ride? Yeah, mate.
What?
Show us where you pissed from.
Show us where you piss from? Come on, mate. You can't say that to the Prime Minister. We know he doesn't hold a hose. Usually campaign outings are tightly managed, and even work safety signs can't dodge the handlers. Annie, is meeting disgusting regular people a viral risk now?
It's always been a risk, and it's always one of the hardest things for politicians to do. I remember actually way back in when I worked on Mark Lathan's campaign, him having to be one day coaxed out of the bus because he was just like, God, do I have to do this? I have to get out there and walk through this Westfield, and the people outside were waiting for him and the doors were closed and we were waiting to go, and he was coaxed off the bus. And then, you know, it actually, you know, you don't know if a baby's going to vomit on you, you don't know if a baby's going to cry on you, you don't know if someone's going to blame you for something else, not know your name, all these things that make the nightly news. And that's really, really hard because you've got no control. You're in the no control zone. When I worked for Anthony Albanese one day after an event in Oxford Street, we were walking back, actually to get the bus back to his office. We were walking back, and a fellow jumped up from the street curb and just picked him, grabbed him around the collar. And I was like, oh my God, you know, what's going to happen? And he was like, are you Anthony Albanese? Are you Anthony Albanese? And he was like, yeah. And I was thinking, say no, say no.
And that guy was Mark Latham.
But it goes wrong so much more than it goes right. Like, I can think of one example with Malcolm Turnbull in the seat of Reid, when one of the victims of the Malaysian plane crash, their father happened to run into him on the street and gave him a hug, and it was this warm, wonderful moment, which wasn't scripted, and it worked. But I can tell you there's thousands of times from Bill Shorten asking a lady what her favourite lettuce was because he had nothing to talk about. It is just, you know, or seeing a poor woman on the Central Coast getting her eyebrows waxed in the middle of a Westfield and then this media scrum. And you just think this is the worst day for this woman ever.
Well,
it never
it was
goes
better
right.
that it was her eyebrows getting waxed.
But it is excruciating. The general public love them. They vote. They should. I love democracy. But they don't help on election campaigns, do they?
Yeah. You know, most of the time, if you walk around with the Prime Minister, people are delighted to meet them and they're polite and it's lovely. You know, 999 out of 1,000 times they are, and then someone chirp fronts them and they're abusive. And that's what makes the news. It's unrepresentative, but that's what happens. And during an election, what you do, there's a travelling team running around with the Prime Minister, and the day before you send out a person called an advancer and they tape up the exit signs so they're not photographed with them and all that stuff. Meantime, the opposition are finding out where you're going, and they're saying, how can we stick a stooge in the pub that he's going to go in and shirt front him and ruin their news day? So the abuse increases during elections. Sometimes it's genuine. A lot of the time it's actually set up for both sides.
But isn't that the best? Like, I think the transparency is the best part of the modern campaigning, because it was easy to control a photo shoot when you were the only one with the camera. Now everyone's got one, and so if things happen in the field when they're out there, let's see how they really react to people that have a comment or have a point of view. I actually quite like it.
As a journo, it's the best thing. You wait all day and you get taken to these boring places after boring places, set up questions and supporters, everybody's rah-rahing who's ever there, and all of a sudden someone comes in and gives you something to write that day, and it's just the best.
And there is what's wrong with modern politics. Right there. So when she's talking about all those
policies to write about, we'd write about them.
Talking about health, aged care, childcare, but oh no, some person who doesn't know A from B yells at you, and then that's the lead of the nightly news, and it's just.
I mean,
it's really
can't you combine the two though? Like when someone shouts out, "Show us where you piss from," you can make an important point about men's health and the money you're putting into research.
And as a media advisor, like, boo-hoo to you two. It's not about you. It's not about what you need to write.
But it's also not about you crafting a completely staged, managed bullshit press,
Absolutely.
release.
What do you mean?
And have it all worked in, and then I want to see them deal with real people. I want to see them how they no way. I don't want the people that are electing them. We don't want them to talk to those people.
There was one campaign that caught our eye from a candidate for the new Liberals Party.
Hi, I'm Victor Klein. I'm leader of TNL. We have a policy for net zero emissions by 2030 to stop the rising waters. If we wait another 20 or 30 years like Liberal, Labor and the Independent want, we'll be in deep water. So if you live in the federal seat of North Sydney and you care about real action on climate change, vote 1, Victor Klein. Before it's...
Oh, man. I wanted to vote for him, but unfortunately he drowned. For the only poll that matters, the pitch. This week, we're holding a referendum on the head of state. First up, in the red bandana, a pitch to become a republic.
Hi, I'm Simon Collins of Collins & Partners, and as you'll see, we think Australia becoming a republic is all about timing.
Great profile.
Thanks.
You've got your own business.
Yep.
Written a novel.
I have.
You play pro footy.
I do.
And you're in a band.
I am.
Wow. But you still live with your mum.
That's right.
Are you her carer?
No. She's in great shape.
So why do you still live with her?
No.
It's not about politics. It's not about monarchy. It's just about time.
You've got my vote, and now in the blue, blood, a pitch to keep the Queen.
Hi there, we're Team Loud. As a nation, we can be a bit of a loose bunch.
That's why we need an authority figure like the monarchy to keep us in line.
A little bit of parental guidance from time to time.
Enjoy!
This country contains strong language, violence, and scenes of a sexual nature, nudity, use of substances, and scenes of whatever is happening here. Australia is loose as f***. Parental guidance is strongly recommended.
You've got my vote. We've pre-polled our panellists, and the winner is Pitch One, Collins and Partners. We'll have the President of Australia deliver this trophy. For most campaigns, targeted advertising looks like this. But for Clive Palmer's United Australia Party, it looks like this. Or like this. And if you haven't seen their ads, it's probably because they're so subtle. The UAP has said it will spend up to $100 million on advertising. So much money that even their candidates are asking, was it worth it? Annie, is it a good strategy to make everyone sick of you?
I unfortunately feel that he's very clever in what he's decided to do and how he's actually doing it. He knows there are people who are very unhappy. There's was some polling done in December last year that showed the majority of people who were going to vote for the United Australia Party were 18 to 30-year-old guys from Queensland and New South Wales. And why were they going to vote for him? Because they didn't want the pandemic and they were over the pandemic. And he is looking around to scoop up their votes. Then he doesn't have to have his advertising say anything other than freedom or your interest rate. It's so minimum, but he's actually, you know, sadly executing it really well. And it is going to have a really big impact on our election, and that's a worry.
You know, last election, Palmer spent $89 million on the campaign, far more than anyone else. And if you look at the efficacy of it, apart from the fact that he didn't win a single seat, he got 488,000 votes. Now, typically a party will spend between $3 and $10 to get a vote, a major party. He spent 182. He'd have been better off giving him $150 each to vote for him. It's hopeless. So why are his ads so bad? And the reason his ads are so very bad is he writes them himself and he's talking to himself.
It's a vanity project.
Oh, yeah.
Like his whole thing, you know, he actually did himself get elected and never rocked up. You know, he has no interest really in being a politician. But for him, you know, we talk about, is he going to win a seat? No, he's not. But he is going to influence a lot of them and his preferences are going to be important.
And the other impact it's having, I know it's just a small thing, but is visual pollution.
Yes.
So, like, the semiotics of colour is really important in branding and products. So, and in products that are politicians. So you have blue, you know, represents blue ocean, conservative values. Red, which is passion and strong, and you have yellow, which is generally seen as a warning. You know, it's one of the more repulsive colours. We rarely use it in advertising because of its starkness, and it often turns you off. I mean, the French see yellow as a colour of betrayal. Just park that. But yeah, so it's everywhere. And it is true. So you could say that, you know, you make fun of him and joke about it from a marketing perspective. He was right to go early. Right, so it is true, research shows that if a brand is advertising over a longer period of time, it's more effective than short bursts. Him advertising before the election time, before the rest of everyone else put their ads out, has given him a huge amount of cut-through and ability to get into the culture of Australia.
The UAP does very short ads.
Australia needs you. Let's work together to save our country. We want freedom, freedom, freedom. Join the United Australia Party now.
I won't. And ads that are 45 minutes long, can't wait to not watch. Forget 3-word slogans. They have 1-word, 3-time slogans. And they have something the other parties don't. A theme song.
And that's my kind of party. The United Australia Party. Yeah, that's my kind of party. The United Australia Party.
Oh, I know what I'm voting for in the Hottest 100! That song, that's my kind of party. The United Australia Party. That song has 23 million views on YouTube. But weirdly, under 2,000 likes. Well, I like it. And if you want to hear the whole song, good news, Clive Palmer has bought out entire ad blocks to play it in full. 51 times. On Monday, the Liberal Party debuted their own attack jingle.
More taxes are coming, more taxes, more taxes. There's a hole in your budget, dear Labor, a hole.
It won't be easy under Albanese.
Oh, I prefer Clive's song. That's my kind of party. Claire, is the political song back?
I hope not, if that's the tune that we're singing. Oh, look, and kudos to him to rhyme vote with antidote takes some kind of genius, I think. Not that they're into antidotes, certainly with COVID anyway. But look, they're good devices if it's an earworm, and that's why I think in that sort of context, what the Liberals have done is really quite effective. It's a tune we know, it's quite effective with their message. I hope it doesn't get stuck in my head. I'm not probably going to have that same recall with the United Australia Party ad.
Yeah, I think you will by the time I keep singing it. That's my kind of party. United Australia Party. There ain't no party like a United Australia Party. Get on board. This is a fun party.
It's very deceptive to say he's got 23 million views because that makes you think he's much more popular than he is. The algorithm, which we do know favors conspiracy theories, so everything he says about COVID, everything is just going to pump numbers into it. And the other thing is they now believe that he bought 18 million, at least he bought 18 million as pre-roll online. So it's deceptive. It's completely deceptive.
I don't know. Will's making a big campaign for it.
Man, that's my kind of party.
Please stop. It's earworm.
In advertising, you say, if you've got something to say, you say it. If you haven't, you sing it. And I think that's what he's doing here.
Don't encourage him.
It's hard to choose which part of the UAP campaign I like the most. The threats.
Save your home, save your life.
Save my life? There's a three-word slogan. Vote or die. There's the ads that look like a Metamucil commercial.
It's not just equal wages, it's equal opportunity. With equal opportunities comes jobs, respect and independence. What every woman needs. Vote for freedom, vote one, United Australia Party.
Authorised by Clive Palmer for the United Australia Party, Brisbane.
If you think you or anyone you know has UAP, please see your doctor. But no, my favourite part is that song!
And that's my kind of party, the United Australia Party.
That's my kind of party. It's the United Australia Party. Come on, everyone! That's my kind of party. It's the United Australia Party. Thanks to our panel, Toby Ralph, Annika Smethurst, Annie O'Rourke, Claire Kimball and Todd Sampson! There was a candidate up for election in Kooyong that really caught my attention for some reason. Independent Will Anderson. Finally, a name you can trust. But no, I am not running for government. The other Will Anderson has no website, no social media, no campaign videos. Even the ABC can't get a photo of him. So since he hasn't got his own ads, we've made one for him. Get well soon, Russell. We'll see you next week. Who is Will Anderson? I don't know. But if he's anything like Will Anderson, I don't trust him. Will Anderson has never worked a real job in his life and right now is living off money from the government-funded broadcaster. I'm going to give away 2 trophies. I don't care. Will Anderson claims he'll provide sober leadership, but he's thinking about getting stoned right now. And worst of all, if you vote him in, you'll have to spend time with politicians. Fuck it, I get a vote. Vote not one Will Anderson. It's the Will Australia can't afford. Spoken by Will Anderson, not Will Anderson. Authorised by Will Anderson, definitely not Will Anderson. We don't really know who Will Anderson is.